Yes, yes. Another moment, another chance. You are with your teacher, integrated science teacher. This is grade 9 exam prediction. So it is integrated science. So here should be science, huh? Integrated science. So that is SI inserted there. Integrated science grade 9 exam prediction by teacher Zamalek. So this is Kenya Science Network. Our number to access us is 0791937308. In case you have any challenge, you have any problem, you want us to have an online tuition, or you want us to interact physically when you are around this place of Nairobi, we can always interact. And remember, Kenya Science Network is for everybody. Kenya Science Network is for the entire learners in the nation. It is just a new network platform where all learners engage. Learners are being able to be told what next after they have known what integrated science is, and they want to venture into grade 10, 11, 12, 13, and even 14, if it is there. Yes, it is there because we have university studies. Remember, after your high senior school studies, you can either go to a job market or you either go to university when you want to advance your studies. Remember, after your grade 12, you are having a certificate that can now lead you to job opportunity. But now, if you don't have the knowledge of integrated science and you want to venture into a job opportunity outside there, you have to contact Kenya Science Network, where we are going to network. Network, you know what a network is. We are going to connect me, you, and the employer. So in this case, Kenya Science Network is a good platform for all of us. So welcome to Kenya Science Network, where we are going to be, first of all, get the knowledge. After getting the knowledge, how are you going to network outside there? Whom do you know within the industries? Whom do you know within the hospitals? Whom do you know within the working area? Kenya Science has such networks. So let's dive to Kenya Science. First of all, let's learn about integrated science. Once I give you knowledge, I bump you with a lot of knowledge, and you have the knowledge, you have the skills within your hands. You are now able to showcase your skills outside there. Now, during games time, a pile of papers. So we have a pile of papers and a wooden furniture. So let me just change the color of my pen. So you have a wood, you have a paper. They caught fire in a residential house near the school. Which class of fire is this? So the question, first of all, is asking the class of fire and which extinguisher should be used. So in that case, when we see wood, we see paper, we see fabrics. These are class A type of fires, class A types of fires, and they are known as ordinary fires. Ordinary fires. These are combustible materials. So in the case where we have combustible materials, they are leading to ordinary fires. So such ordinary fires, remember, these ordinary fires, when you use water fire extinguishers, they can be put out. They can be put out. So in that case where we have class A, we are class A, choice A, we have class A, water-based extinguishers. That is true. So in that case, our answer, just like I've explained, is class A type of fire called ordinary fire, and they can be extinguished using water-based extinguishers. Class B are not foam extinguishers. Class C cannot be extinguished by carbon dioxide extinguishers. And remember, in most cases, carbon dioxide extinguishes electrical fires. Yes, so those are not the best choices to extinguish such class of a fire. So in that case, class A, which are called ordinary fires, caused by only those combustible materials like wood, paper, and fabrics, can be extinguished by water-based fire extinguishers. Number 2, David observed a chemical bottle in the laboratory with a safety symbol. So this symbol, this shows that the substance is toxic. So toxic substances, remember those toxic substances, once you consume them and they enter your body, the body will now fight to detoxify them. Particularly the liver is the organ that is able to detoxify harmful or toxic substances. So in that case, your body cannot take that toxicity for it normal functioning. So what happens is that the liver is able to now break it down. By breaking it down, it is now detoxifying such a substance. So this particular substance says that it is toxic. So what does it represent? Flammability? No, we're going to see a flame in the case of flammability. Corrosives? No, we're going to see some chemicals in case of burning the skin, burning the surfaces or any kind of material that they are exposed to. You're getting that? Toxic is the right answer in this case. Irritant, no. So our case, we have toxic as the symbol shown there. Sarah mixed water. So there is water being mixed with alcohol. So when that happens, remember, we are going to experience one layer. Alcohol and water, we are going to experience one layer. Which method is most suitable for separating them? So because water has a boiling point of 100 degrees Celsius, alcohol has around 78 degrees Celsius, we use simple distillation in this case. Why are we using simple distillation? Because alcohol will distill off first, leaving behind water will distill off later. Distills off later. Are you getting that? So what happens is in distillation, you heat the mixture. Once you heat the mixtures, the vapor of alcohol will be formed, and those vapor are passed to the Liebig condenser, which condenses them, cool the vapor, and condenses it back to liquid. And now you collect the alcohol as a distillate. If you look at the setup of a simple distillation, we are lacking a fractionating column. The best method in this case of alcohol and water is fractionating column because they have different boiling points. Simple distillation also works the same. So what happens is that the mixture is heated. Once you heat the mixture, the vapor of ethanol alcohol, uh, alcohol vaporizes fast because its boiling point is lower than that of water. So once it vaporizes fast, the vapor is now taken to the Liebig condenser. The Liebig's condenser does what? Cool the vapor and condenses it back to liquid, where it is going to be collected as a distillate within the conical flask or your beaker. So that method is called simple distillation. Chromatography, this one is able to separate colors from colored mixtures. Are you getting that? Filtration, we are going to have a filter paper in that case, where we are going to separate insoluble solids from liquids. So that is what filtration is. It's a method that is used to separate insoluble solids that do not dissolve in liquid from liquid. And then sublimation is those substances that undergo a process of solid to gas directly. So those substances that are able to change from solid to gas directly without passing through liquid are separated using a method called sublimation. Number 4 is a question here, a very good one. A container holds water up to 3 meters. So the height in that case is 3 meters. Calculate the pressure. So we want pressure at the bottom where the density, so we're given density, we don't have pressure. The density always written as rho. In that case, it is written this way, rho. So the density is 1000. And remember, density is measured in kilogram per cubic meters. And that is what we have. And gravity is 9.8 meters per second square. So in that case, this one can be rounded off to 10 meters per second what? Squared. So let's go on. So how can we find pressure? In that case, this is pressure in liquid because there is water. So in that case, pressure in liquid is density times height times gravity. This is the formula for finding density in liquids. So in that case, we are going to have our 1000 at the density in kilogram per cubic meter times height is 3 meters times gravity is 10 Newton. So in that case of even writing at 1 meters per second square is equals to 10 Newton per kg. So it is not 10 Newton, sorry for that case, it is 10 Newton per kg. So that is the gravity. We know that if it is not written 10 Newton per kg, it is always given in meters per second square. So we are going to have such like a thing. So when we try to multiply, we're going to have 1000 times 3, that is 3000. And remember, a kilogram per meter square and Newton per kilogram. So it means that kilogram and kilogram will leave this land, and meters will cancel one, another meters will bring it to square. So what do we have? Newton per meter square. So in that case, 3,000 times 10, this one, we are going to have 30,000. 30,000. But in that case, we're going to have Newton per meter square. Newton per meter square. And we know that 1 Newton per meter square is equals to 1 Pascal. So in that case, our answer will be 30,000 pascals. So in that case, what is our answer? Choice A. Choice A. So in that case, our answer is choice A. If you have any problem in finding pressure, finding force, finding weight, finding density, kindly contact Kenya Science. And our number is 0791937308. As simple as that. So you're going to contact Teacher Zamalek. In that case, just contact Kenya Science, and we're going to do more based on pressure, based on force, based on weight, based on density. These are the common questions that usually comes. If you want to find the force, what is the formula? Those questions really come, and they are very challengeful to learners. So in that case, our pressure there is 30 Newton per meter square, which is equal to 1 Pascal. A teacher opened a perfume bottle. After some time, the scent spread across the room. Which process is this? Now, we realize that perfume particles are able to move from their region of high concentration to their region of low concentration. And that process is called diffusion. So in that case, our answer is choice B. Osmosis, there must be across a concentration gradient. You have to know that when we're talking about osmosis, we have to mention across the concentration gradient. Across the semi-permeable membrane. Sorry. It is semi-permeable, not whatever I've talked about. Semi-permeable membrane. Sorry for that. When you talk about osmosis, there must be semi-permeable membrane across a semi-permeable membrane. When you talk about filtration, there must be insoluble solid and there must be liquid. When you talk about evaporation, there must be liquid changing to gas. Are you getting that? So get the differences. So diffusion, there is no semi-permeable membrane, but osmosis, there is semi-permeable membrane. So that is the difference. And again, in osmosis, we're talking about low concentration to high concentration, or we talk about high water concentration to low water concentration. Are you getting that? But diffusion, we're talking about high to low concentration. So there is a difference between high water concentration and there is a difference between high concentration. When we have high concentration, it means that the concentration of solid is high, but the liquid is low. But when we talk about high water concentration, it means that water has a lot of concentration as compared to low water concentration. And engine requires a metal that withstands high temperature and mechanical stress for engine parts. So that means mechanical stress, it means the strength is too high. It has high strength, high temperatures. We know that which is most suitable. So engineer wants to have a substance. We don't call it them substance, but he wants to have maybe a vehicle, maybe an aeroplane, those things that uses engines, those things that uses engines. And then it requires a metal in the construction of such a particular item that requires engine. So he realized that this particular metal that he needs to make this as an item that must entail an engine, he must have that metal that is able to withstand high temperatures, a metal that is able to withstand the mechanical stress for engine parts. Which is most suitable? We know that aluminum is lightweight, and in this case, such metals should be lightweighted, but then aluminum has low temperatures because it is not an alloy, but alloys like steel here has got a high ability to withstand high temperatures, and they are very, very strong, and they are very durable. So in that case, the most suitable metal he can use in this case is the steel. Steel is the most suitable one. In food chain, there is maize, yes, being eaten by mice, and mice is being eaten by snake, and snake is being eaten by hawk. And the energy flows right from maize, which is the producer. This is the primary consumer. This is called secondary consumer, and this is tertiary consumer. So in grade 9, there is this what we call food chain and food web. I think it is the second topic where we're talking about living things and their environment, biology part, where we are now. It is towards the last section or strand or substrand of the strand, and the strand there is living things and their environment. Now the one that is toward the end, we have the food chain there, and we have a food web. Now energy will flow where producers will bring food, and the food they bring is being eaten by mice, primary consumer, and mice are being fed on by snake, and snake are being fed on by hawk. Which animal is at the same level as mice? So which animal is as the same as a primary consumer? Those that feed on producers. Goat is one of them, because we know that primary consumer, they feed on only plants, and plants are the primary producers. One of the plant is maize. So primary consumer, they feed on the plants. Secondary consumers, they feed on flesh, and tertiary consumer also feed on flesh. So in that case, the only animal that is at the same level as mice that is able to eat the producer is the goat. The goat, remember, they eat the plants. Lion feed on flesh. Vulture, again, bacteria, they feed on, again, flesh. So in that case, the goat are one of the primary consumers. Which of the following is reusing water? So reusing water simply means once water has been used in one of the occasions or one of the section, it may be again be used again in other activities. So it means that there are two or more activities that the water is being used for. So the first activity is completed, and the water still, the water is dirty, maybe the water is not that much clean, but that water again is taken and being used for another purpose. That is what we call reusing water. Mulching plants. So mulching does not require water in that case. So mulching is wrong. Using rinsing water to clean toilets. That is true. So we can use the water that we have rinsed with. Maybe we were doing some laundry and we have rinsed the clothes with water. Then we use it to clean toilets again. So in that case, this is called reusing water. Turning off taps when not in use, that is not reusing. Boiling dirty water and cooling the steam, no. So in that case, our answer is choice B. Number 9, which statement is true about reproduction in human beings? Reproduction happens when the female gamete and male gamete fuses to form zygote. Then zygote, now, first of all, there must be mating. There must be mating. So the female and male organisms must mate, or rather sex is happening. So once that has happened, there is the male reproductive gamete and the female sex cells, which are coming together. They fuse to form a zygote. Once they form a zygote now grows and form embryo. Embryo grows and form um, uh, fetus, and fetus now grows to form a baby. So that is the chronological order unto which reproduction happens. So before the baby is born, remember, there must be fusion of male and female gametes to form zygote or fertilized egg. So in that case, this zygote is a blastocyst. It attaches, it moves after fertilization. This is fertilization. After fertilization has happened, now the embryo is being implanted, or the fertilized egg goes to the uterine wall, where it attaches anywhere to the uterine wall. Remember, fertilization happens first, and then implantation happens. where now the fertilized egg goes to the uterine wall for it to get implanted. Once that happens, the embryo now begin to grow within the uterine wall. It forms the fetus, and the fetus later on grow. Then after gestation period, which takes place after 9 months, so we call it gestation period. It takes place about 9 months. And then after the gestation period, now conceiving or giving birth happens. And the baby is being taken out via the vagina or the birth canal. So zygote can implant anywhere in the uterine wall. That is true. That is true. They said which statement is true about reproduction in humans. So that is, in this case, this statement is true because zygote is the fertilized egg or the blastocyst. It can now implant itself anywhere within the uterine wall. Gestation is about 12 months. No, it is about 9 months. Fertilization occurs after, no, the reverse is true, where fertilization occurs first and then implantation later. Fertilization occurs in the uterus. No, it occurs within the oviduct. So the right answer there is choice A. Zygote can implant anywhere in uterine wall. Number 10, a grassland had chameleons, flowers, butterflies, and hawks. Which organism was most abundant? So the most abundant organism in this case, they must be the producers. The producers are the most abundant organism within a food web, or rather food chain. So in this grassland, the most abundant for the survival of the entire organisms within this particular family is the producers. And that producers are the plants, and plants include the flowers. So chameleons are not the most abundant, flowers are the most abundant, hawks are not the most abundant, butterflies are not there. The most abundant organisms within an ecosystem or within an environment must always be the plants. And in that case, flowers are the most abundant. 4 water samples were boiled to dryness. Which sample is likely rainwater? We know rainwater is a soft water type, and this soft water type has no minerals such as magnesium and calcium salts. So let's see. So water sample after boiling. So we realize that the salt is 3.0 grams, 2.5 grams, less salt. So rainwater must have less salt. So that case, the answer is C, because rainwater is a salt water. It lacks a lot of mineral salts that makes the water to be a hard water. Remember the difference between hard water and soft water. Hard water has mineral salts like the calcium and magnesium salts, but salt water lacks the minerals. So in that case, our answer is choice C with 0.8. C with 0.8. So the answer there, A, choice C. The answer is A. Which sample is likely to be rainwater? Sample C. Sample C. Let's dive to question number 12. Equal soap were added to water samples X and Y. If soap is added, this one had minerals. Y forms suspended particles. So this is hard water. This one is also hard water. Which statement is correct? X may have many minerals. X may form lather after boiling. X can form scales in pipes. True. So the right answer there is C, that X can form scales on pipes because it has minerals. It has minerals of calcium and magnesium. So if these minerals are present, then they form scales on pipes. They form scales on pipes. That is the effect of hard water. The disadvantage of hard water is that it forms scales in pipes. So in that case, X, because it had many minerals, can form scales in pipes. Number 13, which group consists of insect-pollinated flowers features only? Insect-pollinated flowers. Remember, it happens self-pollination and cross-pollination. Those are types of pollination we have. In self-pollination, the insect comes, pick the pollen grains from the anthers, and once it picks the pollen grains, remember the pollen grains are being held by, they are held inside the anthers. So if this is the anthers, the pollen grains are these feathery, or rather the dotted what I'm showing inside here. These are the pollen grains, and this is the filament. if it is the male part of the flower. So what happens is that the insect comes, pick the pollen grains and land them onto the stigma of the same flower. So this is the stigma. So the pollen grains will be landed here. So they are going to be, if this is the insect carries them from the pollen, from the anthers where the pollen grains are. Anthers produces pollen grains. So they're being picked. Once they mature, they're being picked and taken to the stigma. This is the stigma of the same flower, that is self-pollination. The stigma once lands here, it is sticky, so the stigma must be sticky so that the pollen grains are able to stick, and then pollen tube develops, and then after it has generated, the male reproductive cells are taken to the ovule where they will fuse with the male and with the female reproductive cells to form a zygote. And that is how fertilization happens in plants. So what happens is that this particular flower that is insect pollinated must have a sticky stigma, so that once the insect brings the pollen grains here, it lands here and it sticks there. That is number one. Number two, the flower must be brightly colored, and it must be large, big enough, brightly colored petals. So large flower is also an insect pollinated flower. Another one, it must have few heavy pollen. It must have few heavy pollen. So in that case, we are going to have Roman 1, Roman 3, and Roman 4. Those are the characteristic features of insect pollinated flowers. Roman 1, Roman 2, Roman 1, Roman 3, and Roman 4. So in that case, the choice is choice D. The choice is choice D. Let's dive to question 14. Arrange the process in seed formation in the correct order. Again, this is now towards the last topic of living things and the environment, and that is called fertilization process, or how the seeds are being formed and zygote is being formed in plants. So what happens is that pollination happens just like I've showed you. So Roman 2 is the first one. And then from there, growth of pollen tube. So the pollen tube grows, true. I have just told you. So that is Roman 1, followed by pollen tube breaks. Once the pollen tube breaks, the male reproductive cells, it bursts. The pollen tube bursts, and the male reproductive cells within the ovules are now going to fuse with the ovules to form fertilization, forming a zygote. So in that case, the third one is the last. So this is the arrangement of how seed formation happens. So what happens is that pollination must happen. Pollen grains must be taken to the stigma. Once they land to the stigma, which is sticky, a pollen tube now grows. Once it grows, then the pollen tube breaks. Remember, this development of pollen tube first, and then it grows. Once it grows, it forms a tube where now the reproductive cells, which is the pollen grain, now move towards the micropyle in the ovary to the ovules. Ovules are now the female reproductive cells. The ovules fuses with the pollen grain. So sperm cell, or the male reproductive cells of a flower, is the pollen grain. The female reproductive cells is the ovules. They fuse together to form what we call a zygote. And zygote later forms seeds, which are the ovules again. So in that case, we have Roman 2, Roman 1. Sorry, so we had Roman 2, Roman 1, Roman 4, and Roman 3. Roman 1, 2, Roman 1, Roman 4, and 3. True. So the answer is choice A. Number 15. Which is the correct method? Which is the correct method? Oh, this question is fun, yeah? Anyway, let's see. Needle-like leaves reflect light. No, needle-like leaves in xerophytes. So the xerophytes are plants that grow in desert or dry environment or semi-arid. So what happens is that when we see needle-like leaves in that case, needle-like leaves, these are just to prevent water loss. Prevent water loss. Deep roots again for absorption of water. not to reduce water loss. So that is another role. Xerophytes, they have normal hairs too. What do the normal hairs do? They trap moisture. So in that case, the right answer is choice C, because normal hairs in xerophytes traps moisture. Underside stomata, this one again reduces water loss, not to increase water loss. So this answer is wrong. So that case, the normal answer there, or I mean the right answer there is the normal hairs which trap moisture. So the xerophytes have normal hairs. So those hairy like leaves, they're able to trap moisture. Let's dive to next question. So my gadgets are misbehaving. Don't worry about that. So let's move to next question. The process which process causes warming to the surrounding? Which process causes warming to the surrounding? So it therefore means that when you heat, the heat is being absorbed, not released. Not done what? Not released. So evaporation, the heat is released. Freezing, heat is absorbed. Melting, changing solid to liquid, heat is being released. Condensation, heat is being absorbed. Freezing absorbs condensation. So that case, the answer is choice C, where the warming to the surrounding happens. Freezing, remember, is, well, just like the formula, she met Lily eating green colored lemon from Sudan. So liquid to solid, we need a lot of heat we need less heat. Remember, we are not now uh, releasing heat to the atmosphere. We need less heat because we need to cool. The liquid must cool back to liquid, to solid. So that is freezing. So warming is taken to the surrounding. And then when you talk about condensation, again, uh, gas to liquid. So in that case, we need the gas to cool again back to liquid. So those are the two processes that leads to warming to the surrounding. Number 17, which is the third last question. Grade 9 learners measured force. Arrange the steps. So they measured force. There must be mass and gravity. Are you getting that? There must be mass and gravity. So in that case, when you want to measure mass, we have to compare masses. Compare masses or measure mass. So what do we need to do first? We need to tie string on material. After we have tied a string on material, so let's say this is a stone and this is the string. Suspend material on a spring. So let's say if this is the spring, we suspend the material there. And then next thing, take a reading. Take what? A reading. So we are going to read the spring balance. Spring balance. I have just drawn it that way so that you get the picture. But then spring balance has some reading. So take reading. After taking the reading, we record the reading. So what do we need to do? Roman 3, tie string on material. That is true. Number next is suspend the material on the string balance. Number next is Roman 2. So we have Roman 3, Roman 1, Roman 2, and Roman 4, the last one. So 3, 1, 2, 4. So the right choice is choice A. Let us dive to the second last question of section A. Which disease matches the signs? Painless sores. So a disease that is characterized by a painless sores is syphilis. So it is one of the most characteristic symptom of such a disease, painless sores. So whenever you see a painless sore, syphilis. Painless what? Sores. So in acute or chronic stage, it may cause blindness. Are you getting that? Or tertiary symptoms. Tertiary symptoms, it causes blindness. These are just the secondary symptoms. But painless sores is the common one, the primary symptoms. In that case, it is syphilis. Learners used nails, wood, tins, and strings to construct a simple machine. What was it used for? Simple machine, again, we have wood, nail, tins, strings. Just like the one we have seen above there, we are comparing masses. We are comparing masses. So we are not measuring force in lifting objects. We don't have balancing pupils. We don't have measuring wind strength, but we are comparing masses. The last question, which are insect-pollinated flower characteristics only according to quiz 13 above? Quiz 13, we talked about choice D, yeah? Choice D, what was choice D? Sticky stigma, large flower, and for few heavy pollen. So this question is repeated, and that gives us the answer. So thank you for listening to Kenya Science Network. I am your teacher, Teacher Zamalek. If you have any challenge, contact Teacher Zamalek 0791937308. You will get assisted. Thank you for listening once more. Let's meet in the next papers. Kindly revise well for the examination. I wish you all the best and success in integrated science. Bye bye for now.